Hey everyone, I'm Richard, and today's new piece of technology, well, it's something of a hybrid of old and new. It's the iPhone SE, Apple's new budget phone. A curious mixture of state-of-the-art internals housed in a very familiar shell. And it's been something of a personal mission for me to check this one out. For the past 2.5 years, I've been using an iPhone 5S, Apple's last 4-inch mobile. Been thinking of an upgrade for a while now, but I'm just not so keen on the larger iPhone models. Apple was always about producing the most powerful technology in the smallest form factor, until the iPhone 6 came along. I just don't want a big phone. I just want something that's easily pocketable. Meanwhile, in the Android space, aside from a couple of nice entries from Sony, well, smaller phones always get lumbered with less capable processors. Just not good enough. The iPhone SE serves two purposes. First of all, for users of Apple's existing 4-inch phones, this is perhaps the upgrade for you. It retains the A9 processor from the 6S with no cutbacks or compromises, and it pairs it with the form factor of the 5S. It's also cheap too. Well, cheaper. In the UK, the SE is a whole 1/3 cheaper than the 6S, £360 versus £540. Speaking as a 5S owner looking for an upgrade, is this the phone I've been waiting for? Well, sort of. I'm not saying I don't like the look of the SE, but it's totally identical to the phone I've been using for 2.5 years now. And when you buy a new device and you spend a lot of money, you sort of want a sense of something fresh and exciting when you open the box. This is the same old, same old. It's a design classic, no doubt. But in 2016, those bezels, well, they're kind of looking sort of outsized, and you would hope for a better use of the real estate. But at the very least, you can stick with your old case and accessories with no problems whatsoever. Screen resolution also remains unchanged at 1136 by 640 with a 326 ppi pixel density. Now that's not great by today's standards, but it's still perfectly serviceable. Indeed, the screen looks basically identical to the 5 and the 5S. So what about performance? Well, on paper, the gulf between the A7 and the new A9 is absolutely huge. Geekbench single core performance doubles, multi-core performance is up 76%. The GFX Bench Manhattan sequence opens up a 3x increase in GPU performance. Absolutely remarkable stuff. But does it actually feel that much better in general day-to-day use? Well, I actually left my 5S on iOS 8, having seen the impact later OS revisions had on my wife's iPhone 5. Pretty crippling. I did upgrade to the latest OS to compare with the SE though, and well, the 5S actually holds up pretty well, only really slowing down when plenty of apps are resident in RAM. Facebook in particular, well, that does show a difference, but there's no real game-changing improvement in everyday performance. And the same thing sort of happens with gaming, where those GPU and CPU boosts should really make a difference. In fact, the difference, well, there it's even less pronounced for a lot of titles. So here's Geometry Wars 3 running on the 5S. Looks pretty good at a solid 60 FPS. And here it is running almost identically on the SE. Solid 60 all the way. I also tried out another taxing iOS title, AG Drive, and noted that aside from very slight frame rate drops on the 5S, it's still solid on both devices. The SE simply locks to an unwavering 60 FPS. Modern Combat 5, well, again, what you're getting in real life is slightly smoother gameplay, but not the revelatory improvement you'd expect from that huge spec bump. Games like Infinity Blade 3, well, they actually cap their frame rate. This game ran just fine on the iPhone 5S, and of course, it's identical on the SE. And this is actually the big problem I have recommending iOS upgrades year on year. App designers and game developers attempt to tailor their apps to the broadest possible audience, and that translates to accommodating slower devices. And not only that, but potentially iPads running at much higher resolutions too. In short, gaming on a 4-inch iPhone, even an older one, has a lot more overhead. Galaxy on Fire Manticore Rising actually runs better on the 5S than it does on the Apple TV, even though Apple's microconsole is actually using a faster A8 processor. But of course, there are exceptions where the newer hardware will hand in better results. So one example, Warhammer 40,000 Freeblade. It runs with an unlocked frame rate, and that's palpably smoother, but still not quite 60 frames per second. But I think the takeaway here is that you can double CPU power, you can triple graphics performance, but that doesn't translate directly into the gameplay experience. I think generally it's more of a future-proofing option. But in terms of day-to-day usage, well, the SE does have a couple of additional tricks up its sleeve. Specifically, the inclusion of the 12 megapixel iSight camera taken directly from the 6S. It's one of the best cameras available for any smartphone, and having that available in such a small form factor is excellent. The only downside being that the small nature of the screen itself does make it pretty hard to see the full quality of the shot that you're getting, so it's not the best preview monitor basically. There are some downgrades compared to the iPhone 6S though, as you'd expect, and that's aside from the screen. The front-facing camera, well, it's just not as good, while the force touch pressure sensitivity isn't there at all either. But stacked up against the older 4-inch models, the benefits just sort of line up, and the ace in the hole is the SE's battery life. The A9 processor runs on a smaller, more power-efficient manufacturing process, meaning that the same tasks are carried out more efficiently and use less energy. Overall then, if you're looking for a cheaper iPhone, this one will do quite nicely. If you want the fastest mobile processor in the smallest form factor, this is the only game in town. And if you're still running an iPhone 4S, 5, 5C or earlier, the improvement offered here is frankly colossal. But for 5S owners, well, right now that older phone is still holding up quite nicely. What the SE offers there is improved battery performance, a better camera and smoother response, but it's not a game changer. So that's all I've got for you right now. Please do like and subscribe if you'd like to support the work we do here at Digital Foundry. Thanks for watching.